people from the Ozarks and across the state are paying their respects.
And we also have the latest on the situation in Ukraine, along with how the president is looking to increase oil production. Ozarks Fox News at 9 starts right now.
Real, new, now. This is Ozarks Fox News at 9.
Good evening and welcome to Ozarks Fox News at 9. I'm Mike Landis.
And I'm Sarah Scarlett. One man is dead after a Webster County shooting at a trailer park in Seymour. Our Sydney Moran has been on the scene for several hours now. Sydney, are police still there?
Sarah and Mike, police finished wrapping up and processing evidence at this scene here around 7:30, but this all started just after 12 p.m. today. Neighbors told me they were surprised to hear what happened.
We got a call earlier today of a deceased male with a gunshot wound.
A statement neighbor Jeremy Henry was not expecting to hear when coming home from work.
I didn't know why cops were in my driveway. A bunch of them. I think there was like probably 9 cars or so.
Seymour Police Department, Webster County Sheriff's Office, and the Highway Patrol all responded to the shooting on Pee Wee Crossing Road. Agencies arrived and found a man who died from a gunshot wound. Webster County Sheriff Roy Cole believes the shooting was not self-inflicted. He tells me the suspects initially fled the scene.
We do have several people in custody at this time, and we're going to continue interviewing them and try to get to the bottom of it.
Neighbor Henry says it is unusual for something like this to happen. He says if it does happen again, he would consider moving out of the area.
I wouldn't put my daughter at risk at it. I wouldn't bring her into this area if it kept continuing, because there ain't no point in putting her life at jeopardy.
Sheriff Cole says everyone the sheriff's office believe is involved is in custody, and there is no current threat to the public. Reporting in Seymour, Sydney Moran, Ozarks First.
Thanks, Sydney. More details are being released on a deadly police shooting in Joplin yesterday. The suspect is identified as Anthony Felix of Joplin. Felix was shot and killed by officers on scene. Shots were exchanged with Felix, who stole a police car. Once the officers caught back up to Felix, more shots were fired between the suspect and officers, ending with injuries to 3 officers, including the death of Corporal Benjamin Cooper.
This was a violent and unwarranted attack on our officers and is indicative of the rise in violence against law enforcement officers we are witnessing nationwide, and it has to stop.
Joplin city leaders say they're starting to work through what comes next and how to honor this sacrifice made by the officer. State House members held a 21-second moment of silence today. The move was requested by one-time Joplin Police Chief and current State Representative Lane Roberts. He said taking the time to honor the 3 officers wasn't just a sign of support to them, but also their families and fellow officers who are hurting right now.
Mr. Speaker, I ask that you remember the families, the department, individuals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Roy Blunt also released a statement saying his family is thinking of his wife, his daughters, and his colleagues at the Joplin Police Department, especially the 2 officers who remain hospitalized.
A woman from Stone County accused of abusing a 4-year-old boy will spend the next 12 years in a prison cell. Dessa Barton received that prison sentence after pleading guilty in January to abuse or neglect of a child. Barton is one of 4 defendants in this case. Last November, Stone County deputies were dispatched to their home where they found the child unresponsive. Paramedics brought the boy to Cox Southland Hospital, and then he had to be airlifted to a hospital in Kansas City. He was in critical condition. Medical staff discovered various injuries and saw the boy was extremely malnourished. And now in Howell County, this man was arrested for shooting a rifle from a vehicle and then inside of a home, and deputies tried to take him into custody. The sheriff's office says William Collins, who was from Peace Valley, is charged with unlawful use of a firearm and armed criminal action. New video shows how a man escaped from custody in Little Rock, but he didn't stay free for long. Pulaski County, Arkansas deputies say 41-year-old Joel Delgado used his wheelchair to cover as his getaway. The sheriff's office is reviewing what happened here to determine if any procedures should be changed going forward. He was arrested a couple of hours later after deputies say he got a cab.
Making world news tonight. Ukrainian officials say a Russian strike hit a children's hospital in Mariupol, with Ukraine's president calling the attack an atrocity. Plus, power has been cut at the decommissioned Chernobyl nuclear plant.
The United Nations nuclear group is saying right now things are safe and there's no cause for alarm. They're at Chernobyl. Fox News correspondent Trey Yingst is in Kyiv tonight with the latest on a very busy day in Ukraine.
An intense search for survivors in the southern port city of Mariupol after a Russian missile severely damages a children's hospital and maternity ward. Local officials saying at least 17 reported wounded, including children and expectant mothers.
It is a war crime without any justification.
It's one of the most heartbreaking incidents yet for a city that has been under constant Russian bombardment for days. Residents cut off from power, water, and food. The World Health Organization has documented 18 attacks on health facilities and workers in Ukraine. Repeated efforts in recent days to bring in desperately needed supplies to Mariupol and ferry residents out has failed every time. The most recent ceasefire shows some signs of success, getting civilians out of the capital Kyiv and scattered eastern cities, the latest of 2.1 million the UN has said are fleeing so far to neighboring countries.
Today we will do everything to continue the functioning of humanitarian corridors, but if there is at least one shot fired, full responsibility lies with the invaders.
It comes amid renewed fears over Ukraine's nuclear power infrastructure after fighting cut power to the decommissioned Chernobyl plant. The UN Nuclear Watchdog Agency saying there is so far, quote, no critical impact on safety. After territorial gains in the south, Russia claims its forces are intensifying efforts in the north, placing military equipment around residential buildings in Chernihiv. But Ukraine's military and civilian volunteers are responding, ramping up defenses in many cities, including homemade metal barriers. The slow Russian encirclement of Kyiv is raising fears the stalled offensive will soon take a more brutal and indiscriminate pivot.
I grew up here. I got married here. I think that most of us will stand until the end.
Amid sporadic shelling, residents on Kyiv's outskirts continue rushing toward transportation hubs, seeking escape. But there are shows of resistance and patriotism. The Kyiv Classic Orchestra playing the national anthem and Ode to Joy in Maidan Square. There is growing evidence the Russians are committing war crimes in Ukraine. People here are bracing for bloody days ahead. In Kyiv, Trey Yingst, Fox News.
As the Russian invasion in Ukraine continues, the Biden administration is looking to new sources to increase oil production. According to AAA, the national average now stands at $4.25 a gallon, and analysts expect prices to climb even further after President Biden announced a ban on Russian oil imports. The White House is now turning to OPEC and Venezuela to increase production to relieve pressure on the West, though some Republicans say there's more than enough oil to make up the difference.
We're having to buy oil from dictators in Venezuela and Saudi Arabia and Iran. We just have to simply turn the switch on and unleash our energy sources here.
Oil experts say if this trend continues, Americans could end up spending as much as $2,000 more for gasoline this year. Stocks staging a comeback today, with the major averages ending higher for the first time in 5 days as investors track the economic fallout of the war in Ukraine. Big tech companies and financials were among the biggest gainers, while energy companies lagged as oil prices tumbled. Airline and cruise stocks also jumped as oil prices fell. The Dow gained 653, the Nasdaq was up 460, and the S&P 500 added 107. Well, earlier today, believe it or not, free gas was being given out in St. Louis. Long lines started causing major traffic jams in the area. The giveaway was part of a charity event being held by a nonprofit organization, My Mother's Roots. They had a budget of $12,000, and the gas flowed until it ran out.
All right, Sarah, lucky day for a lot of people coming up, wiping away student loan debt for tens of thousands of Americans. See who this forgiveness is applying to. And then why buying an electric car might not be saving you from rising gas prices. We'll see you right here when Ozarks Fox News at 9 returns.
You're watching Ozarks Fox News. Real, new, now. You're watching Ozarks Fox News. Real, new, now.
Military officials say getting help for burn pit victims has been a challenge. According to a group called Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, more than 80% of post-9/11 veterans who served in those two countries say they had contact with toxic waste from those burn pits. But President Biden is now promising to help veterans suffering complications to get better access to medical care and federal benefits quicker.
We've increased funding for VA research to study the health effects of toxic exposure in the military. We're speeding up the process to identify and address adverse impacts of military-related environmental exposure.
The Department of Veterans Affairs could also be changing its policies to make health coverage and compensation for respiratory issues more available. Well, the first person to receive a genetically modified pig heart in a transplant has died 2 months after that groundbreaking experiment. Hospital officials at the University of Maryland Medical Center did not provide an exact cause of death for 57-year-old David Bennett, the guy you see right there. They're saying it's unclear if that experimental pig's heart was rejected. Dr. Robert Montgomery, a transplant surgeon who received his own heart transplant, says he remains extremely optimistic.
We continue to be extremely optimistic that we're going to be able to solve this problem of the organ shortage and the fact that 6,000 people die every year.
Bennett's son also praising the hospital for offering that last-ditch groundbreaking operation. He says his family hopes his father's experiment will help further efforts to end the organ shortage. A new study finding that schools that implemented mask requirements had fewer COVID-19 cases. The study from Duke University involved over 1 million students and over 150,000 staff members attending 61 different schools, K through 12, between July and December of 2021. Schools that had those universal mask requirements reported 72% fewer COVID-19 infections within those schools. That's compared to schools with optional mask requirements.
In consumer news, the Department of Education has announced that nearly 100,000 people are eligible for student loan debt cancellation. The cancellations would apply to those who were impacted by changes to the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program last year. The student debt relief would amount to almost $6.2 million. Well, fuel prices may be rising, but don't think that switching to an electric car will save you. Analysts say that the price for electric vehicles will rise for similar reasons to increasing gas prices: Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia is the world's third largest producer of nickel, a key metal used in electric vehicle batteries. Prices have more than tripled since the last week of February, which will make them either hard to come by or just more expensive. President Biden has signed an executive order asking government agencies to compile reports that could lead to greater regulation of cryptocurrencies. In addition, the president is asking the agencies to study the potential ramifications of creating a U.S. central bank digital currency. Biden set a deadline of 180 days for the reports to be filed, with insiders saying a significant policy shift could follow those findings.
All right, turning now to our weather coverage. Jamie, it was a nice evening to get outside, but I hear things are about to feel and look a lot different for us.
Yeah, you know, we've kind of had one of those winters where at the end of the week, you kind of start looking for a winter event, and we've got one coming. Looks like on Friday, we will have a snowstorm impacting all of the area. Everybody, I'm expecting some accumulations. So, everybody will see some accumulations. We'll have the answers on where we're going to see the heaviest snow and how quickly we'll get out of this cold pattern in your forecast next.
And now weather with Chief Meteorologist Jamie Warner, certified by Weather Rates for the most accurate forecast in the Ozarks.
Well, it's great to see the sunshine today. Wished it was a little warmer. We did manage to hit 50 this afternoon. Outside right now, we've got partly cloudy skies. We're down to 39. Temperatures will continue to drop out there. Hey, to our northwest, we've got winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories in effect along the I-70 corridor through the Kansas City area. And the first of a couple of different bands of snowfall is now setting up here across Kansas. That's going to produce some snow across parts of northern Missouri into tomorrow. Locally, we're just looking at partly cloudy skies here in the Springfield area. A little clearer to the south, a little cloudier to the north, and that's kind of how it's going to go into tomorrow. We start off, I think, the day tomorrow with partly cloudy conditions here along the interstate, mostly sunny conditions off to the southeast, and areas off to the northwest here in west central Missouri, north of Highway 54. This is where it's going to stay cloudy and cold throughout the day, and yes, there will be some light snow on and off throughout the day in places from, say, maybe Osceola, northeast up to Versailles. Now, I think with the snow coming in during the day and with temperatures marginally cold enough for it to try to stick, I think all in all, we're going to see little or no accumulation throughout the daytime hours in these areas, but that changes overnight tomorrow night. Now, further south, along and south of the interstate, for the most part, we're going to be ahead of this frontal boundary. So while, yes, we're going to find partly sunny conditions, and yes, it'll stay on the chilly side, it will be warmer than what we find in the northwest. In fact, it looks like low 50s here along the interstate. Areas off to the south, that's where I think we'll find sunnier conditions and also our warmer readings. Now, as we get into Thursday night, you can see how another band of snow really sets up from southwest to northeast. And notice how it's lined up along and north of the interstate by 7 o'clock Friday morning. That band of snowfall will gradually drop southeast during the morning hours, and then during the afternoon it'll slip south of the interstate, and it'll be on the way out, I think, as we head into early Friday evening. While we're not showing any snowflakes back here along the interstate, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see some flurries lingering maybe past sunset. As far as accumulating snow, everybody's going to see some. I think the higher amounts will be to the northwest. Here toward west central Missouri, places like Stockton, up toward Warsaw and Versailles. This is where we're probably going to find 4 to 5 inches of snowfall. Here along the interstate, it's going to be roughly 3 inches of snowfall that we find, while areas to the southeast, where, you know, a combination of different impacts from the fact that the snow's coming through during the day, temperatures will be dropping during the day to get to a point where that snow can stick. That's going to play against snow accumulations. That said, I still think we're going to see maybe 1 to as much as 2 inches here from the Elville area up through West Plains and Alton. Here in Springfield, I expect that snow to start before sunrise. I expect it to taper off during the afternoon, so then we're just looking at flurries by late afternoon. Those flurries should shut down early Friday evening, expecting around 3 inches. And as far as road conditions, I think given the cold temperatures and the snow arriving before sunrise, we're going to wake up to snow-covered roads. We're going to hold on to snow-covered roads throughout the morning hours. They may become more slushy, I think, during the afternoon as we find temperatures getting closer to the freezing mark and that snow begins to taper off. Temperatures tonight, they'll drop off to about 31, a high tomorrow of 52, but colder to the north. You don't see this here, but it looks like highs in the 30s in places like Henry County, maybe even into areas like Warsaw and Lincoln. Off to the south, though, near 60 in Harrison. Cold day on Friday across the area. Much of the area staying below freezing for highs. Looks like high near 30 here in Springfield. 11 for a morning low on Saturday. So a frigid start on a March morning here in the Springfield area, and that goes for everybody. And it'll stay cold Saturday despite sunny skies. A high of 34 degrees expected. But Sunday, we flip the switch and we go back into a mild mode. Highs near 60 again on Monday, a cloudier day, maybe even a few late afternoon showers. Tuesday, we're back in the mid-60s for highs, and I think we're looking at mid-70s Wednesday of next week.
So the cold doesn't stick around long, and at least the warm-up is in time for, you know, the first sign of spring, which is Setting those clocks.
Yeah, we spring forward Saturday night. And you know that 7-day forecast right there, that was, I mean, for me, that's kind of a March forecast where, yeah, you can get some winter weather, but it doesn't stick around. It may be a day 1-2 day event, and then you might have highs in the 70s later in the forecast period like we're looking at this week coming up.
So a 2-for-1 on Sunday. I'm for that.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Thanks, Jamie. Coming up next, Missourians were in the state capitol protesting a gas tax today.
I know this gas tax is just 2.5 cents right now, but I mean, I just can't imagine being a single mom right now.
Why they're asking the state to stop its gas tax coming up next. Keep it here.
Real, new, now. You're watching Ozarks Fox News.
Welcome back to Ozarks Fox News at 9. I'm Sarah Scarlett.
And I'm Mike Landis. Of course, we've been watching those numbers climbing at the gas stations right now in Missouri.
Right.
The average price is $3.90, if you can believe that. Some people, though, are remembering that 2.5-cent gasoline tax that went into effect last year for those transportation projects.
Yeah, some lawmakers are revisiting that. Our Missouri Capitol reporter Emily Manley explains why they're asking to repeal that hike.
I really hesitated today whether or not I should get in my car and drive down here because I knew how much it was going to cost me.
Paying more at the pump.
It's gone up, I think, what, $1 in the past 2 weeks? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Frustrated not only for the rising price, but a new tax.
I know it's just 2.5 cents now, but it's going to be, quadruple that in a couple years.
In October, a 2.5-cent increase was added to the state's gas tax, an annual hike over the next 5 years.
Do I want good roads? Of course I want good roads. But you've already empowered us to far enough to make sure that everybody already should have a good road in this state.
By 2025, it's expected to bring in $500 million for roads and bridges. But there's a way around paying the tax.
Keeping track of our receipts has just been, it's maddening. It's maddening, and I forget my receipt.
keeping all your receipts for a year and then turning them in to the Department of Revenue.
I know this gas tax is just 2.5 cents right now, but I just can't imagine being a single mom right now and worrying about my kids and how I'm going to put food on the table.
Concerned the price tag on other items will also go up.
It causes the price of goods everywhere to be more expensive because you don't just go out back and pick your tomato and put it on your table.
Now, the increase raises the tax from 17 cents a gallon to 29.5 cents by 2025. There is legislation filed in both the House and the Senate to repeal it, but there hasn't been much action on the bills. Reporting from Missouri Capitol Bureau, I'm Emily Manley.
Cannabis activists lined up in Jefferson City to urge lawmakers to fully legalize marijuana. The Cannabis Freedom Act combines several marijuana-related bills into one. The measure would legalize possession and use of the drug for those 21 and older. They want lawmakers to act quickly to derail a competing ballot initiative called Legal Missouri 2022. It would give current medical marijuana businesses the first shot at full recreational sales. The state would also still have the ability to limit licenses. Today, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson met with Missouri U.S. Senator Josh Hawley. President Biden nominated her to replace retiring Justice Stephen Breyer. If confirmed, she would be the first black woman on the high court.
In national news, congressional leaders have reached a bipartisan deal providing $13.6 billion to help Ukraine and European allies. The deal includes billions more to battle the pandemic as part of an overdue $1.5 trillion measure financing federal agencies for the rest of this year.
The White House says sending Polish warplanes from U.S. air bases to Ukraine presents logistical challenges and isn't in the best interests of the U.S. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says conversations among military leaders on the offer are ongoing. Earlier this week, the Polish government proposed a plan to transfer its fighter jets to a U.S. military base in Germany. In exchange, they asked the U.S. to supply Poland with American-made jets. The Pentagon said no.
I think it's pretty clear it doesn't require a military expert to understand why having planes fly from a U.S. airbase into a contested part of a country where there is a war is not in our interests and not in NATO interests.
Poland has accepted hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians fleeing from Russia's military attack.
Congress is on verge of passing a massive bill designed to fix current holes in the U.S. supply chain. Some experts say those issues are to blame for some of the current inflation numbers. Our Raquel Martin reports on talks at the White House that called on Congress to act now.
This opportunity is really important for our nation.
Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer was at the White House Wednesday to urge the passage of federal legislation she says is key to bringing more jobs back to the U.S. and lowering prices.
We need the Congress to get the CHIPS Act done.
The bill would invest billions towards making semiconductor chips in the U.S. During the pandemic, the manufacturing of nearly everything hit a wall when factories overseas stopped running.
I've seen lots full of cars waiting for the chips. We've also had plants idle.
This puts us at the mercy of shortages and supply chain bottlenecks.
Governor Whitmer joined President Joe Biden, the governor of Indiana, as well as several business leaders for a roundtable discussion on the issue.
The bottom line is this bipartisan innovation bill will allow us to stamp more products made in America.
Governor Whitmer tells me the passage of this bill could help prevent historic inflation hikes like the one Americans are experiencing right now from repeating. Democrats and Republicans are working on the compromise between the House and Senate version of the legislation before sending it to the president's desk.
That's a good start.
But Missouri Republican Senator Josh Hawley says he wants to see Congress go further.
We need to be making all of our critical supplies in the United States, at least 50% of them be made in the United States.
In Washington, Raquel Martin.
High school students in Florida staged a walkout today to protest the passage of the so-called Don't Say Gay bill by the Florida legislature yesterday. Students at Cypress Bay High School walked out this morning and headed to the school's track. The demonstration was a response to the passage of the controversial bill known officially as the Parents' Rights in Education Bill, which would ban discussions of gender identity or sexual orientation through 3rd grade. The bill now moves to the desk of Governor Ron DeSantis, who has indicated he will sign it. Congress passed legislation that would help out the U.S. Postal Service and ensure 6-day-a-week mail delivery. Congress also provided the USPS with about $50 billion in financial relief over a decade and requirements for future retirees to enroll in a government health insurance plan. The long-fought postal overhaul has been years in the making, and complaints from officials warning that without congressional action, USPS would run out of cash by 2024.
All right, still ahead tonight, Jamie gives us a look at the forecast heading into the weekend. Nice and clear now, but big changes are in store. And then we'll talk about some trending topics, including cows on the loose in a big city out west. We'll show you exactly how this one cow caused a lot of tie-ups and issues on the freeway right there in one of America's largest cities. And then we're going to be talking about the most popular baby names, which are going to be the top ones in 2022. We'll be right back.
And now weather with Chief Meteorologist Jamie Warner, certified by Weather Rates for the most accurate forecast in the Ozarks.
Well, if you got some errands to run before the end of the week, tomorrow may be your day to do it because we are going to be dealing with snow on Friday, accumulating snow and snow that impacts area roads. Now, as far as accumulations, I think the highest totals are going to be to our north, especially closer to the Kansas City area where there are going to be places that see over 6 inches. Places from, say, Stockton up to Versailles, about 4 to 5 inches in that zone. Looks like here along the interstate, generally around 3. In the Branson area, probably 2 to 3 inches of snowfall. Same for the Harrison area, while areas off to the east like West Plains and Mountain Home, lesser amounts there, but generally around 1 to 2 inches. So specifically, here's what I'm looking for. In the Warsaw area, 4 to maybe as much as 5 inches. Rolla about 3, Buffalo about 3. Down in Branson, it looks like 2 to 3 inches. And in the West Plains area, looking at, again, roughly around 1.5 inches to 2 inches. Here in Springfield, expecting about 3 inches. And how does that compare historically? You know, I mean, we go some years in the month of March without seeing any snowfall whatsoever. There are some years where you see a lot of it. In fact, as I take a look at the record books going all the way back to 1888 here in Springfield, The biggest snowfall that we've seen after March the 1st occurred in 1970 on March the 16th. We had almost 16 inches of snow that fell on that day. This has happened where we've had at least 3 inches out of a snowstorm 38 times since 1888. So about a third of the time, going all the way back to 1888. As far as latest 3-inch snowfall, the latest I could find actually occurred in 1929 on May the 2nd, with just over 6 inches of snowfall reported on that date. So yeah, it can go longer than this. We can see snows like this into the month of April and even into the early stages of May. Overnight tonight, temperatures look chilly. It looks like we'll drop to about 31 for a low here in town. Tomorrow, see afternoon highs ranging from, I think, here to the northwest, maybe upper 30s to low 40s. Springfield about 52, near 60 though in Harrison. On Friday, it's going to be a cold day with the snow moving through, about 30 for a high here in Springfield, and expecting a very cold start to our Saturday with a morning low of 11. Sunshine will push temperatures maybe just above the freezing mark here in Springfield, so we're not going to melt off a whole lot of snow on Saturday, but we will on Sunday as the pattern changes. This is what it's going to look like as we head into next week. We are going to see more of a southwest flow develop across the area. The result will be on Sunday, highs up near 60. Same for Monday, and well into the 60s, I think, on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, we're talking 70s for highs. And I think that warm pattern will actually spill over into Thursday of next week ahead of the next storm that'll move through on Friday.
That 74 is looking awfully good to me.
It is, especially when you got a forecast of snow like we have as we close out this week. Yeah, I'm kind of itching to get past the cold and the snow Friday.
Yeah, we've been talking about this up and down pattern. It seems like we've had it for a while. I mean, it is March. This is just kind of the time of year where that happens.
Yeah, you go back to the beginning of this year, and I mean, we've seen this has been the pattern. These wild swings in temperature where you get a shot of real cold that comes with some winter weather, and then it backs off to a pretty big degree, and then you get another intense shot of cold that usually comes with a little bit of winter weather.
Kind of up and down. So
yeah, no kidding.
All right, well, let's talk about some trending topics tonight. Because you've probably seen Los Angeles freeways. They are kind of known for high-speed chases. Right. You see those on the news. Well, there was actually a slow-speed chase earlier, and the culprit this time had 4 legs instead of wheels. This happening on Interstate 210 in Los Angeles.
This is not a white.
Okay, that is not slow. That is fast.
Yeah.
I see what you did there. That's funny.
This guy right here, they were trying to corral this cow right here, get him off the freeway right there. He was blocking traffic during rush hour. He eventually made a run for it and tried to get inside of a business, actually. I don't think he had much luck right there. They eventually got him lassoed in the yard, brought him to a pen. And what's amazing is they have no idea where this cow came from.
So there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, and they've not been able to track him down. I was curious about that fake horse in the back of the pickup truck in the beginning.
It was
we were discussing
really bizarre. I mean, I think people probably have theories. I don't really know what was going on, but I love it. It's very bizarre. It was a bizarre scene.
Well, it's interesting because there's been times I've been driving around in the country. I mean, here in the Ozarks, and I've seen a cow out on the back road, but I can't imagine a big freeway like that running into something like that. So that's kind of crazy.
I wonder if somebody was watching the news and they were like, that's my cow. That's where he went.
I didn't know there was a lot of cows in Los Angeles. Maybe it was going to Bakersfield or something. Who knows? So. Well, now we're going to go over to Egypt, where one man's strength training, got a little pun right there, paid off quite literally. A strong man in Egypt is hoping for some recognition from the Guinness Book of World Records after pulling what he says is a 180-ton train car.
Oh, training.
Get it now?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
All right. I was trying to be sly right there. Dozens of spectators gathering around him as he was tied to the passenger coach of the train, and he was able to pull it a few inches forward. As you can see there, the crowd erupting into applause, celebrating his achievement. He says he's going to try to work a little harder to pull an even heavier train car sometime soon.
I want to point out, folks, we talk a lot about these Guinness Book of World Records records. That's a record.
Yeah,
that is a record.
That's a record. Stacking M&Ms, that's not a record.
Okay, this is impressive, but do we buy it? Do we think this is real?
He was doing. I mean, you see him, the train car. I mean, it's slow, but it's happening. More impressive than last week with the guys popping the balloons together.
I thought that was pretty impressive.
It was fun, but I got to give that guy props right there.
I'm not going to lie. On my tier, I think it's balloon guys, popping the balloons.
Stacking M&Ms.
Oh, wait, the guy that was, what do you call it? free diving, the guy who could breathe underwater for like a
For the
super long
longest,
time.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that is impressive.
Cool, yeah, right.
Stacking M&Ms is not a record.
I mean, apparently it is. That just means we
For
need to find
somebody.
a record to break. Okay, well, 2022 is just getting started, but one website is already predicting its top baby names for the year. Names.org analyzed data from several different administrations and came up with its top list.
Okay.
And it looks like a lot of classics are on there.
Yeah.
Liam is number 1, Noah is number 2, Oliver is number 3, Elijah is number 4, and William rounds out that. And then we're looking at the top baby girl names. And you see more classics.
Yeah, look at
Olivia, Emma, Charlotte, Amelia, Sophia. I like it. I like this trend. I think
back
it's good.
around again.
Yeah, these are names that seem like they were popular maybe 70 years ago even.
Right.
And so they're maybe not even that long ago, but
I think you're probably like Oliver, and I think Charlotte's another one that's
I like Charlotte. You like Charlotte too.
Yeah, that's my wife.
You can't beat a
better like
classic.
it.
That's one thing. Sometimes you just can't beat a classic. I think people were getting very creative, and now they're just kind of scaling it back a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Liam, I think Liam has always been, I think Liam is one of those names, it's a great name, and it's not overused.
And it's so cool still. That is such a
I like
cool
that
name.
one.
Yeah.
Liam's a good one.
Yes.
I'll approve that.
All right, coming up in sports, overcoming adversity.
I never thought that we couldn't do it. I'm just being 100% honest. I think our kids did.
Dan Lucy shows us how Coach Mox got her Lady Bears to the never give up this season.
And now sports on Ozarks Fox News at 9.
Major League Baseball canceled the second week of the regular season tonight. This after the negotiations with the Players Union failed to produce a new collective bargaining agreement. That means opening day won't be until at least the middle of April. That is if both sides can work out a new deal, and that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. The two sides are hung up on the international draft, which the owners want, the players don't. They also can't agree on core economic issues or expanded playoffs. The lockout is now in its 98th day. Conzo Martin's Mizzou Tigers live to play another day. Tonight in Tampa, the Tigers beat Ole Miss for the third time this season. It's the opening round of the Southeastern Conference Tournament. Conzo's Tigers are now 12-20 this year, and Mizzou is going inside early. Springfield's Tevin Brazil with the hoop, and we're tied up early. Then the Tigers, Ronnie DeGray, the third with this three-pointer, and Mizzou is on top 17-15, but Ole Miss would answer with the long ball as well. Luis Rodriguez with the three-pointer here makes it a 20-17 Ole Miss lead. And then later, the Rebels' Matthew Morrell would drive the lane and get the slam dunk. It was a 32-32 game at halftime. Second half, Kobe Brown would drive to the hole. Ball goes high off the glass and in. The hoop and the harm, 39-34 Mizzou. Brown led the Tigers with 16, and then later, DeGray drives, misses, but DeJuan Gordon is there for the follow dunk to make it 47-36 Mizzou. And the Tigers go on to beat the Rebels 72-60. Mizzou advancing to play LSU tomorrow around 2:30. Missouri State Lady Bears will tip off the Valley postseason tournament Friday evening at 6 in Moline, Illinois. It's hoops in the Heartland. And in our Bear Nation report, Missouri State is the second seed and will play either Drake or Bradley. The Valley also released some of its postseason awards today, and 3 Missouri State players were honored. Seniors Bryce Caleb and Abby Jackson were named first team All-Valley, and both players were put on the all-defensive team. Caleb averages 12 points and 5 rebounds a game, and she leads the team with 64 steals. It's the third straight year Caleb's been named first team All-Valley. Abby Jackson averaged 15 points and 7 rebounds a game in conference play this season. Mariah White was named to the all-newcomer team. White scored 24 points in her Lady Bear debut and then averaged 9 points and 3 rebounds a game after that. One thing that Lady Bear coach AMAKA AGUGUA-HAMILTON wants to do is cut down the nets at hoops in the Heartland. COVID canceled the postseason tournament in 2020, and in 2021, the Lady Bears left after one win because of COVID concerns. So Coach Mox wants 3 wins in Moline and a tournament championship, but it was not going to be an easy journey. At the beginning of this season, both Abby Hipp and Jasmine Franklin suffered season-ending knee injuries. Coach Mox and the Lady Bears had to rebuild the team during Christmas break. This weekend, this new-look Lady Bears team could win that elusive tournament title.
I never thought that we couldn't do it. I'm just being 100% honest. I think our kids did. I think they kind of doubted a little bit at first. They were like, we lost Jazz. But once we came back and we played Loyola and Valpo and they got a little taste of success there, they're like, okay, we're going to be all right. We just got to keep getting better every day. And they were completely all in. So I just felt like we have enough to get it done. Kids had to mature right in front of our eyes, and I think some of them really did.
The Drury Lady Panthers will tip off the D2 Women's NCAA tournament Friday morning against Missouri St. Louis. Lady Panthers will go into the game ranked 5th in the country. Drury moving up 3 spots in this week's coaches poll that was released today. In fact, the Midwest region has 3 teams ranked in the top 6. It's going to be a tough region. We'll see what happens. Mike and Sarah, that's sports. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Dan. Coming up next, Steve Savard and Heather Lewis will join us to tell us what's coming up at 10 on Color 10.
And how one zoo is celebrating in a big way who they teamed up with to make this giant porcupine a reality. Keep it right here.
Welcome back. Heather Lewis and Steve Savard are here to tell us what's coming up at 10 on Color 10.
What are we working on, guys?
Well, hundreds of pounds of illegal drugs taken off the streets by Highway Patrol troopers. We'll tell you where they made that bust in Missouri and what all they found.
And a man tried to smuggle in more than 50 reptiles into the U.S. from Mexico. Where he hid them is probably going to make your skin crawl. We'll tell you about it at 10.
I feel like I don't have to find out where they hid them to make my skin crawl.
Yikes, right? Well, here's some wildlife of a different kind right here. A colossal porcupine peeping its head out for kids at San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. They actually teamed up with Jim Henson, the creator of things like the Sesame Street and the Muppets there, for this 2-story porcupine there. Percy has a mechanical mouth, jaw, and eyes as well, Sarah. That's pretty crazy.
It is very, very bizarre. So as you can see, Percy stays tucked inside a log, but can peek her head out to great visitors. Percy will live at the San Diego Zoo. That is so bizarre and hilarious. That is very, very funny.
I would hope the spikes, or whatever you call them, the quills, are not rigid. That would hurt.
It's very, very cute. All right, Jamie.
Yes.
We have another nice day tomorrow, right? But then things are changing.
Yeah. Are we poking the bear with this forecast? A lot of you probably would rather see 70s in the forecast. We got snow on Friday.